Douglas Ducote, an American patriot by the grace of God, do solemnly swear to support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America from enemies foreign and especially domestic. I, Douglas Ducote, an American patriot by the grace of God, do solemnly swear to support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America from enemies foreign and especially domestic. Say it with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, Patriots, and welcome to another edition of the Douglas Ducote Show. You had many places to be tonight, but chose to be here with me, and for that, I am forever grateful. We're going to cover just a few things tonight, but kind of in depth. Adam Schiff, and also the indictment of Donald J. Trump. But first, President Joe Biden raised eyebrows this week after appearing to reveal plans that him and Secretary of Transportation Buttigieg came up with to build a railroad from America across the Pacific Ocean, across through the Indian Ocean. We have plans to build a railroad from the Pacific all the way across the Indian Ocean, Biden told the League of Conservation Voters at the annual dinner in Washington, D.C. last night. We have plans to build in Angola, one of the largest solar plants in the world. I could go on, but I'm not. I'm going off script. I'm going to get in trouble. Biden's comments were quickly met with skepticism on social media on the idea that one Twitter commentator called an ocean train. Bold and sensitive, Mr. President, Fox News contributor and former GOP Congressman Jason Schiff tweeted. That is going to be a heck of a railroad, GOP consultant Matt Whitlock tweeted. Here's the best one. Put Grandpa to bed, Missouri GOP Senator Josh Hawley's press secretary Abigail Monroe posted. So let's be clear. It is physically impossible. That's right. They say nothing's impossible. No, this is impossible. To build a railway across the Pacific Ocean or a freaking interstate across the Pacific Ocean. Much less 8,000 miles of railway. Now, I would say that Secretary Buttigieg needs to be fired, but that's an understatement. The fact that he put this in Biden's head and then Biden told it to the American people is beyond ridiculous. It just goes to show the continuing mental decline of Joe Biden. And sadly, I don't see any easy outcome of that. Although there are articles of impeachment that have been put forward this week for him and Kamala Harris, but I don't see it going anywhere, just like when the Democrats had the House, it didn't go anywhere because it was killed in the Senate. Well, same thing's basically going to happen here. Now that the Republicans have the House, they can put together this impeachment and it's going to go to the Senate where it will be killed off. All right. So it's not going to amount to anything. Now, tonight's lead story. Representative Adam Schiff, Democrat, California, should pay millions of dollars for pursuing the now discredited theory that former President Donald Trump colluded with Russia ahead of the 2016 presidential election. Representative Anna Pauline Luna, Republican of Florida, filed a privileged resolution today, Tuesday afternoon, to censor, condemn, and fine Schiff $16 million, which is half the cost that the special counsel spent investigating Russia election interference led by Robert Mueller. Schiff led a similar investigation during his time as chairman of the House Intelligence Committee. Adam Schiff is the man who said in March of 2017 that he had personally seen more than circumstantial evidence that President Trump and his team had colluded with Russia to influence the 2016 election. He had the information. He had the nail in the coffin. And only a select few were able to see that information because of the top secret clearance that Schiff had. Well, that was a lie, a complete and utter lie. But as chairman of the secrecy-shrouded House Intelligence Committee, Schiff was able to continue to repeat this lie for years, intentionally misleading Americans about the then President of the United States. In March of 2019, when the Department of Justice released a summary of Special Counsel Robert Mueller's final report, the 9 Republicans who served with Schiff on the Intelligence Committee signed a letter formally calling for Schiff to step down as chairman. Your willingness to continue to promote false narrative is alarming, they wrote. The findings of the special counsel conclusively refute your past and present accusations and have exposed you as having abused your position to knowingly promote false information, having damaged the integrity of this committee, and undermine faith in U.S. government institutions. Republicans' letter slams Schiff for repeated public statements, which implement knowledge of classified facts supporting the collusion allegations. The lawmakers then hinted broadly that these statements occurred at the time anonymous leaks of alleged intelligence and law enforcement information were appearing in the media. Wonder how that was happening. Adam Schiff. Former Congressman Trey Gowdy, who served as the Intelligence Committee on the committee, said Adam Schiff leaks like a screen door on a submarine. Schiff did not step down from his position as chairman, and he continued to trade off the secrecy of the intelligence community to declare the media appearances that he had evidence of criminal conduct by the former president. He had it. He had all the evidence. Now that special counsel John Durham has showed that the Russia collusion story was an utterly fictional creation by agents of the Hillary Clinton campaign who acted through a law firm so that work would be hidden by the secrecy of attorney-client privileges, Schiff has pivoted to claiming he has seen the evidence that former President Trump is guilty of crimes in connection with January 6th. Yes, we will show evidence of the president's involvement in this scheme to submit electoral college ballots from electors in states Trump lost, Schiff told CNN back on June 19th. Schiff, the House Intelligence Committee chairman, manufactured a false version of the July 25th phone call between Trump and the Ukrainian president. And he didn't tell the American people it was complete fake. Schiff indicated he was giving the essence of Trump's remarks, but now says that he's been caught in a lie, and now that it's been found out that it was not true, that it didn't happen, and now that because of Schiff's leading of telling the House that I have the damning evidence, they impeached Trump twice on false allegations in the House. All because of Adam Schiff and his I have the information. Well, now he says it was a parody. that he didn't really mean it. He was just joking. Representative Ann Pauline Luna started pushing the House of Representatives to go after Adam Schiff by filing a motion to censor and fine him $16 million because of his continuously lying concerning the Russiagate probe that smeared former President Trump as being in bed with the Kremlin. 34-year-old freshman Congresswoman announced the motion to censor Schiff in a speech this past Tuesday from the House floor. Schiff currently running for Senate. Luna accused him of spreading a conspiracy theory that Trump was tied to Russia. The allegation that President Trump colluded with Russia to steal the 2016 presidential election has been revealed in two separate investigations put together by the Department of Justice, in-depth investigations, as false. He did not collude with anyone. His speech with Ukraine president was totally fine. Adam Schiff made up lies about what it said. What happened with Russia and that whole bullshit was all lies. Adam Schiff made this crap up and for 4 years pushed it on the American people and continues to stand his ground today. The conspiracy theory was invented, funded, and spread by President Trump's political rivals, asserting the fine would amount to half the cost to taxpayers for conducting the Russian probe. She went on to contend that Schiff enjoyed and abused his special access to sensitive information unavailable to most members of the Congress as the chair of the Intelligence Committee, which is how he got away with it, by saying, I've seen it as the chair. I have that top secret clearance and I'm able to see what you can't. And then the House voted yesterday. House that is now in the hands of the Republicans, who now can turn the tables on the Democrats for what all they did to Trump and the outright lies and smears about Russia and about quid quo pro, about Russiagate, about the Ukrainian phone call. All's been proven not true. 20 House Republicans joined Democrats yesterday in voting to table a resolution to censor Representative Adam Schiff, breaking from the majority of the GOP conference on a measure that was backed by leadership. The House voted 225 to 196 to 7 to effectively kill the measure, which was spearheaded by Representative Anna Pauline Luna, as we talked about. It called for censoring and condemning Schiff for conduct that misled the American people in a way that is not befitting of an elected member of the House of Representatives. It also would have directed the Ethics Committee to conduct an investigation into Schiff's lies, misrepresentations, and abuse of sensitive information. Here is a list of the Republican members of Congress that are okay with Democrats lying and making up stories that are not true to try and get a Republican prosecuted and charged with a crime, or in this case, impeached. Representative Kelly Armstrong, North Dakota. Lori Chavez DeRemer of Oregon. Juan Castamali of Arizona. Tom Coyle of Oklahoma. Warren Davidson of Ohio. Brian Fitzpatrick of Pennsylvania. Kay Grainer of Texas. Garrett Graves, right here from Louisiana. Thomas Keene Jr. of New Jersey. Kevin Kelly of California. Young Kim of California. Mike Lawyer of New York. Tom Massey of Kentucky. Tom McClinton of California. Mark Berlino Turner of New Jersey. Jay Overnote of California. Mike Simpson of Ohio. Mike Turner, Ohio. David Verlado of California. And Steve Wormack of Arkansas. After the vote, Adam Schiff / shithead said, "I'm frankly surprised, and I think it shows a lot of courage for Republican members to stand up to the crazy MAGA folks." Now, I have sent a nice, not politically correct email to Garrett Graves, Louisiana, about how I feel about what he has done. How I will do everything in my power to see to it he never gets elected to another position in his entire life that is dealing with government, whether it's federal, state, local, fucking dog catcher. I don't care. All 20 of these, that's how bad they hated Donald Trump. They hated him so bad that they were okay with 6+ years, 6 years of Adam Schiff lying to the American people that he had all the damning information to put Donald Trump in prison for life, for crying out loud, much less get him kicked out of the White House, impeach. And 2 House impeachments, one for Russia, one for Ukraine, were put forward and passed, primarily on the false accusations of Adam Schiff. And these 20 Republicans that I just named off hated Donald Trump so much that they are okay with someone else, whether it's a Republican or in this case a Democrat, lying to the American people. That is unacceptable. That is un-American. They are the prime reason why we have such a screwed up country right now. When it's okay to become a member of Congress and lie. We, the people, sent you there to be honest and to tell the truth. But to turn around and lie to us, get caught in that lie, 6 years worth, and 20 Republicans say, it's okay. I hate Donald Trump so damn much that I don't care that he lied to the people. That's how messed up this is. So I would hope that if any of the names that I listed off, and also, by the way, they're in my community section, if you'd like to go there and see them, feel free to read the letter that I sent off to my member of Congress and Mr. Garrett Graves. You can also copy that if you'd like and use it as your own to send to your members of Congress, or use it as a template to put in your own words how you feel about what your member of Congress did yesterday by allowing Adam Schiff to walk. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is the indictment of Donald Trump. And I really do wish, that I was able to be brought onto CNN or MSNBC to read this, so that they would get a little understanding of what's going down. So I hope that you will take this video after we're done with the live show tonight and share it every damn where you can on social media, so that the liberals and the Democrats actually get the point. So here we go. The media's condemning and comments that Donald Trump is almost certainly guilty of crimes are based on an ignorance of the law and the blinding political bias. As is often the case with those that mouth by the featherhead class, the opposite is true. The former president has several viable defenses here, which they're not telling you about, and they don't want you to know. Some will be offered in pretrial motions challenging the 37 charges in the Florida grand jury indictment related to his handling of alleged classified documents. These motions are apparent appealed, even if it's denied. Such petitions and arguments are laborious and time-consuming. They render special counsel Jack Smith's state ambition of a speedy trial not happening at best. Trump's principal defense rests with the Presidential Records Act, PRA. Listen closely. It is not fractional, as former Attorney General William Barr is claiming right now. It was a law passed by Congress in 1978 that granted an exclusive right of former presidents to maintain custody and control of presidential papers occurred during their time in office. I'll repeat that. It was a law passed by Congress in 1978 that granted an exclusive right of former presidents to maintain custody and control of presidential papers occurred during their time in office. Arguably, it includes classified documents. It is a fundamental perspective of law that specifies statutes prevailed over general statutes. The PRA is a specifically crafted law that applies to a narrow group of people. That is, presidents. By contrast, the Espionage Act, enacted in 1917, is a general statute that applies broadly to all citizens. Hence, the defense will argue the PRA takes precedence over the Espionage Act, which it does, which accounts for most of the charges that they brought against Donald Trump. It is another elementary tenet of law that if statutes are in conflict, the more recent implemented statute predominates over the earlier one. Here, the Records Act was passed 61 years ago after the Espionage Act, 61 years after. This makes it more recent, relevant, and operative in this case. Trump's lawyers will argue that the PRA is the governing and controlling law, not the Espionage Act that they're trying to pull. So, what does the law mean? For more than a decade, it was the considered opinion of the Department of Justice that the PRA conferred a unique right of former presidents to keep whatever presidential records they wanted, and the government has no authority to seize them. The National Archives agreed. A president has the sole discretion to segregate and dispose of such records. Indeed, so convinced was the DOJ of this interpretation that its lawyers defended it in the U.S. District Court in Washington, D.C. in 2012. They argued that ex-President Bill Clinton was allowed to maintain custody of whatever he wanted during his 2 terms, including audio tapes with suspected classified information that he stored at his house. The judge, without reservation, agreed. District Judge Amy Berman Jackson ruled that control over presidential records rests squarely in the hands of the former president. She wrote, in relevant part, the National Archives does not have the authority to delegate materials as the presidential records. It lacks any right, duty, or means to seize control of them, although it is the preferred method for the paperwork to go. The judge also adopted a very argument made in court by the Justice Department seizing the records in an extraordinary request that is unfounded, contrary to the Presidential Records Act express terms and contrary to the traditional principles of administrative law. 45 years ago, Congress passed the Records Act to memorialize what previous presidents had always been prevented to do as a matter of tradition and practice. This is important since it is incumbent on courts to interpret statutes consistent with legislative intent. As the Wall Street Journal noted in a recent editorial, if the Espionage Act means President Trump can't retain any classified documents, then the PRA is all but meaningless, right? Importantly, the PRA is a civil statute with no criminal penalties attached. Judge Jackson's opinion reinforced the legal constraints of both the National Archives and the Justice Department. Their ability to retrieve documents is limited to a civil action, not criminal seizure. Hence, the proper remedy was for Attorney General Merrick Garland to bring a civil lawsuit to enforce his subpoena and allow the impartial judge to resolve the matter. Trump's defense team will argue that Garland manipulated the law by commandeering the Espionage Act to criminalize conduct that is not criminal at all under the prevailing statute, the Presidential Records Act. Garland defined his department's own legal interpretation of the law in the previous court's decision to target Trump in advance of a national election. His flagrant abuse bears the unmistakable stench of partisan politics, which has infected the Attorney General's tenure from the onset. The FBI did not raid Bill Clinton's home to reclaim classified material, nor did the agency raid the same home when his wife, Hillary, stored more than hundreds of classified documents on her personal server as Secretary of State. Notably, she did not have the protection of the Presidential Records Act because she wasn't a president. But it seems that abusive raids and inflated indictments are only happening to Republicans. The new litmus test for prosecution is partly affiliation, not federally by law. Trump's defense team will say that unequivocal application of the law and select prosecutions are a violation of their clients' due process rights. These rights are based on principles of fundamental fairness guaranteed by the 5th and 14th Amendments of the United States Constitution. This will likely be the subject of another pretrial motion to dismiss the case. After all, equal justice under law should be more than more words chiseled on the pennant of the U.S. Supreme Court and muttered by the mouths of the Democrats. A similar motion based on constitutional violations may argue that Garland snookered a Florida magistrate into signing an overly broad general search warrant that is strictly prohibited by the Fourth Amendment. If the evidence seized was accomplished by unlawful means, it constitutes an unreasonable search and seizure. The evidence would be admissible under the well-established current rules and laws. You can be assured that Trump's defense team will seek to exclude or suppress the testimony of his lawyer, Evan Conrad, who was forced to testify before the Washington grand jury to the indictment. District Court's Judge Beryl Howell ruled that the attorney-client privilege could not be pierced under the so-called crime fraud exception. Trump's current lawyers will contend that the ruling was deeply flawed and erroneous. Regardless, it is not binding on the trial court in Florida. Moreover, the special counsel and Judge Howell refused to allow the defense to even examine the sealed evidence on which the matter was being argued. That deprived them of presenting a fair counter-argument, which was the prosecution's intent all along. The adverse decision was preordained. At issue are instances in which Trump supposedly asked his counsel about ways to avoid producing evidence that Garland was seeking. But it has never been a crime for a client to ask his attorney questions, even questions about how to evade government intrusions and demands. A Georgia Washington University law professor and Fox News contributor, Jonathan Turley, has pointed out, clients do it all the time. Indeed, it's encouraged. We don't prosecute people for their thoughts or discussions. It was unreasonable or somehow criminal for Trump to ask his lawyers if he could adopt the same obstructive tactics that Hillary Clinton and her lawyer employed to escape charges? Well, not at all. It's the kind of query that attorneys fall quite frequently in their disputes. Trump's team will protest that criminalizing confidential conversations protected by law is an outrageous outreach by Smith. Howell's conclusion that her ruling itself are an alarming breach of the cherished principles that communication between a lawyer and client are sacrilegious. It appears from the indictment that prosecutors used or misused Cochran's testimony to build their case. If that judicial ruling was in error, then any charges that derive from Trump's own attorney would be stricken from the case and unlawfully brought. Several of the charges against Trump accuse him of obstructing the government efforts to retrieve the documents in dispute. We all know that. We've all seen that. In the criminal code, obstruction requires that a person act corruptibly or act with an improper purpose. Those rather vague terms were later defined by the Supreme Court as having been with a wrongful, immoral, deprived, or evil intent. This is an extremely high standard for prosecutions to sustain. Trump's legal team will assert that if their client secretly believed he was entitled to the documents under the meaning of the Presidential Records Act, as well as the court's interpretation of the earlier Clinton case, then he did not harbor the risque, corrupt intent. It is not immoral, deprived, or evil to want to keep what you think is yours if you are genuinely convinced of it. Even before the raid of Trump's house, Trump insisted that he was acting lawfully. Can there exist a credible motive to obstruct an investigation into a lawful act? People are not motivated to impede non-crimes. If Trump prevails in his argument that his actions were lawful under the PRA, then it seems that to charge him with obstruction without underlying crime is a crime. A serious dilemma faces the special counsel is how to hold a public trial guaranteed by the Sixth Amendment when much of the evidence is contingent on classified material. Jurors have a right to examine the documents to determine whether they qualify as national defense information under the meaning of the Espionage Act. That is their duty as the tiers of fact. To understand the facts and apply them to law, jurors must be able to see all the evidence. That is factual law in the United States of America. How do you do that? With 12 people that are randomly picked for jury duty. You got to make sure that every one of them can pass a top secret security clearance. Is that what we're going to do? The Justice Department is going to give them top secret security clearances? Fat chance. However, 12 average citizens selected from the community do not possess the security clearance to view records that are critical to the prosecution's burden of proof. The same applies to lawyers. Prosecutors cannot simply tell everyone, trust us when we say the seized documents qualify as prohibited material under the statute. They cannot put an FBI agent or security analyst on the witness stand who vows that the 31 documents violated the Espionage Act. That is a question of fact that resides solely with the jury. This approach would also deprive the defense of a fair and robust cross-examination. Failure to prevent the jury to read the documents themselves might well constitute reversible error. This leaves the government with the opinion of declassifying the records. So, imagine a trial where the former president of the United States is accused of having classified documents that have since been declassified. It sounds absurd because it is. There is a law called the Classified Information Procedures Act, CIPA, that outlines various procedures of handling sensitive documents in court without jeopardizing national security. But the CIPA is a process, not an embellished resolution. It is, repeat, with risk that can lead to a case being overturned on appeal easily. Unaware of Trump's various defenses, the chronically biased media has gobbled up every word of the indictment and treated it as gospel. Already, they have convicted Donald J. Trump in a court of public opinion. No need for a pesky trial. These are the same fake journalists who pasteurized the phony Trump-Russia collusion dossier as scripture. None of them is smart enough to heed the warning of Albert Einstein that the only mistake in life is the lesson not learned. Veteran lawyers know better. Through experience, they realize that indictments are one-side narratives with embroidered storytelling. In prominent cases, they are often designed for public consumption and meant to agitate or inflame. There isn't a prosecutor alive who doesn't think his case is better than it really is. The delusion is frequently reflected in an overwhelming indictment. Prosecutors also have a nasty habit of ignoring exploratory material that is beneficial to the accused. They twist the law and contort the evidence in the most damning light possible. And sometimes they fail at proof, especially when their seemingly invincible evidence is challenged by skillful lawyers armed with credible witnesses that, in the end, undermine the entire charge. Of course, that is what a trial is for. But first, Special Counsel Jack Smith must survey a flurry of dismissal motions for which the mindless media remains oblivious. So that, my friends, is factual as it gets. There's not a snowball's chance in hell legally that this indictment against Donald Trump is going to do anything, which is why he's probably appearing as he is, continuing to give rallies, happy, cheerful, joyful, and even has said recently, I welcome this. Because what? It proves how biased the Justice Department is, the FBI is, all their attorneys are, and the media. They just continue to push fake stories that are not true, and continue to condemn one person and not look at anyone else. Let's say that somehow they were able to put Donald Trump in jail on these document charges. The same thing would go for Joe Biden. The same thing would go for Hillary Clinton. The same thing would go for Mike Pence. The same thing would go for Bill Clinton. But that's not going to happen, is it? In the event that Donald Trump went to jail because a jury happens to be all liberal Democrats that hate him, and they don't look at the actual physical evidence and what the rule of law says, and I just explained it to you, and you will see it more in the future being explained by lawyers themselves, and they still put him away, shit's going to go south really quick in the United States of America, because the people are fed up with what's happened to our Justice Department and our FBI. They have had enough of watching this corrupt circus show on steroids doing illegal crap. Lady Justice wears a blindfold for a reason. And Merrick Garland and Christopher Wray don't have a freaking clue what that reason is. Folks, you had many places to be tonight. You chose to be here with me, and for that, I am forever grateful. If you haven't already done so, please like and subscribe. Also, in the description of this video, once it becomes a regular video after the show is over with live, you will see where you can follow me on all the different social media platforms I'm on. Follow me there. I do the same for you. That is how we continue to spread factual information to counter all this liberal hate that is happening across this country. As always, please say a prayer for our men and women serving the United States military, our veterans, our law enforcement officers, our first responders and their families, our angel families, our blue and gold star families, and our country. And if you do not know what angel families are or blue and gold star families, please look that up tonight, because they need our support more than ever, because the current administration is pissing on the graves of their loved ones, and that is unacceptable. Thank you, everyone. God bless you. Have a wonderful weekend. If anything breaks between now and then, I'll be sure to talk about it or do a video about it or something. I'll send smoke signals up if I have to. Other than that, I'll see you all back here next Tuesday. Take care. Good night, everyone.